In March 1960, the villagers of Bario in Sarawak, Malaysia, witnessed something truly unbelievable. As a plane from the Royal Air Force soared over their remote highland home, it dropped a rather unusual cargo. Instead of supplies like food or medicine, the parachutes this time carried baskets, and inside them were live cats. Locals stopped in their tracks, craning their necks to watch this bizarre sight unfold. Cats, floating down from the sky, were being deployed in what would become one of the strangest pest control operations in history. To understand how this incredible event came to be, we need to rewind and take a closer look at Bario itself and the chain of events that led to such a dramatic response. Bario isn't just one village. It's a collection of around 13 to 16 small settlements nestled high in the Kelabit Highlands, in the Miri Division of Sarawak, Malaysia. Perched roughly 3,280 feet above sea level, this area was incredibly remote, accessible only by air or long, treacherous journeys through dense jungle. Today, it's part of Malaysia, but back in 1960, Sarawak was still a British colony. Life in Bario was simple, centered around farming and rice cultivation. The people lived in communal longhouses, massive structures with thatched roofs that sheltered up to 100 families each. But beneath this peaceful surface, trouble was brewing, and it all started with a battle against malaria. Throughout history, malaria has haunted humanity. However, by the 1950s, new hope had emerged. At the 8th World Health Assembly in Mexico City in 1955, world leaders agreed that, with concerted effort, malaria could be eradicated, and they tasked the World Health Organization with leading the charge. Armed with new insecticides like DDT and benzene hexachloride, health workers launched aggressive anti-malaria campaigns. The method was simple: spray the interiors of homes with chemicals potent enough to kill mosquitoes. Special attention was paid to walls and the undersides of beds, places where malaria-carrying mosquitoes liked to rest. In Sarawak, from 1952 to 1955, officials sprayed longhouses with a 75% water-diluted solution of DDT. The results were impressive. Within just 21 months, the percentage of malaria-carrying mosquitoes dropped from 35.6% to just 1.6%. Officials were optimistic that malaria could soon be eradicated in the region, but they hadn't considered the unintended consequences of their actions. In the eagerness to wipe out mosquitoes, no one had thought about the village cats. Cats, naturally fastidious creatures, frequently groomed themselves, licking their fur after days spent hunting vermin. As they did, they unknowingly ingested the toxic DDT, coating their bodies. The results were devastating. DDT attacks the nervous system, and the cats began to die en masse. This wasn't just happening in Sarawak. Reports of cats dying from DDT exposure were coming in from Thailand, Bolivia, and Mexico as well. By the 1970s, DDT's lethal impact had earned pest control workers in Oaxaca, Mexico, the grim nickname Los Matagatos, the cat killers. Eventually, DDT would be banned in many countries, but in the 1940s and 50s, it was still widely celebrated as a wonder chemical, its dangers poorly understood. With the cats gone, their natural prey, rats, began to flourish unchecked. Rice fields, already vulnerable, suffered immediate devastation. Rats ate newly scattered seeds, gnawed young rice shoots, and even attacked mature plants. They tunneled into the elevated embankments between paddies, causing collapses that ruined irrigation systems. The fields, rich in food, water, and shelter, became perfect breeding grounds. And breed they did. Rats are famously prolific. A pair can produce hundreds, even thousands, of offspring in a single year if unchecked. What began as a nuisance quickly spiraled into a full-blown plague. Crops were decimated. Food supplies dwindled. Rats, emboldened by the absence of predators, even began to lose their natural fear of humans. The situation became so dire that Officer Malcolm McPoran, stationed in Bario at the time, recalled waking up one night to find a rat chewing through his pillow, gathering materials for a nest. At first, authorities blamed the infestation on other factors: a humid climate, abundant food, and a shortage of rat poison. But later investigations told a different story. A toxicologist from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta analyzed a dead cat from Bario. The results showed lethal levels of DDT, more than enough to cause the mass feline deaths observed. While it couldn't be proven beyond all doubt that the loss of the cats triggered the rat explosion, the evidence was strong enough to convince many scientists. To this day, debates continue, but the logic is compelling. No cats, more rats. And the rats weren't the only consequence. Other unintended victims. The spraying of DDT had widespread ecological fallout. In the Sarawak and Sabah regions, villagers noticed another issue. Their thatched roofs were deteriorating much faster than usual. Investigation revealed that moth larvae, which devoured straw, had somehow survived the DDT assault, while their natural predator, a tiny wasp, had been wiped out. Without the wasps, moth population soared, and the straw roofs suffered the consequences. Birds also disappeared. In places once filled with birdsong, eerie silence reigned. DDT accumulated in earthworms, which poisoned the birds that ate them. Worse still, even when birds survived, the pesticide interfered with calcium metabolism, causing eggshells to become dangerously thin. Eggs broke under the weight of nesting parents, devastating populations of species like the brown pelican and the bald eagle. But back in Bario, the problem was more immediate. The rats had to be stopped. Faced with a spiraling crisis, British officials came up with a daring plan: airlift new cats into Bario. On March 13, 1960, a Royal Air Force Blackburn B-101 Beverly transport plane took off from Changi, Singapore, carrying 3 tons of supplies, including more than 20 cats, packed carefully into baskets and equipped with parachutes. These feline paratroopers were dropped into the Kelabit Highlands. And it worked. Reports from the ground soon confirmed. All the cats had landed safely. Interestingly, the cats weren't the only precious cargo on board. The plane also delivered 4 boxes of stout for a recovering chieftain and some medical alcohol. Thanks to the skill of the pilots, none of the fragile supplies, human or feline, suffered damage during the drop. Not all cats arrived by air. In more accessible parts of Sarawak, cats were collected from cities and transported by truck. In fact, an English-language newspaper, the Straits Times, published a call for volunteers. Wanted 30 flying cats to rout rats. There's some debate about the exact number of cats involved. Contemporary newspaper reports mention 23 cats, while the official Beverly Flight 48 squadron record notes 20. Later, exaggerated accounts claimed up to 14,000 cats, an obvious myth. Regardless, it's clear that it wasn't the scale of the operation, but its sheer creativity and audacity that made it legendary. Operation Cat Drop has since passed into the realm of legend, serving as a quirky but sobering reminder of the unintended consequences of human intervention in nature. In trying to solve one problem, malaria, authorities inadvertently triggered another. And in solving that second problem, they created one of the most memorable stories of animal bravery and human ingenuity ever recorded. Today, Bario is a peaceful place once again. But those who know its history will never forget the day cats fell from the sky. China's agricultural land is shrinking, and fast. That may come as a surprise for a country that's been turning deserts green, tree by tree, acre by acre. But while environmental restoration is a long game, degradation moves quickly. Between industrial development, booming cities, and widespread pollution, China is losing valuable farmland every year. By the end of 2019, China's total arable land measured just under 494,000 square miles. That's a big number on paper, but it's a 6% drop from just a decade earlier, in 2009. The causes are clear: relentless urban expansion, growing industrial demands, inefficient farming practices, and serious environmental degradation. But China's response to this agricultural crisis includes a rather unexpected ally: the crayfish. Yes, crayfish, those small freshwater crustaceans with snapping claws. It sounds strange, even absurd, but these little creatures are playing an outsized role in not just revitalizing farmland, but also in fighting poverty and transforming rural economies. Their journey from exotic novelty to agricultural powerhouse is one of the most fascinating stories in modern farming. The species making waves in China is Procambarus clarkii, commonly known as the red swamp crayfish. It's native to the southern United States, not East Asia. In fact, for most of China's history, crayfish weren't even part of the local ecosystem or cuisine. So how did they get there? The introduction of crayfish dates back to the Second Sino-Japanese War between 1937 and 1945. At the time, crayfish were kept as pets by some Japanese, and many were brought along during the occupation of parts of China. From there, they slowly made their way into China's rivers, lakes, and rice paddies, spreading quietly, unnoticed by most. For decades, they remained relatively obscure, but by the early 1990s, the story started to change. A culinary trend began to take hold. Crayfish dishes, often spicy, stewed, or soaked in wine, gained popularity in restaurants and street stalls across China. The public couldn't get enough. It was a culinary explosion that no one saw coming. Today, China consumes over 90% of the world's crayfish supply. That's more than 1 million tons of crayfish devoured each year. With such massive demand, it was only a matter of time before farming operations ramped up. From small family-run ponds to massive industrial-scale farms, crayfish cultivation has become a national phenomenon. According to China's Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, crayfish farming was already significant back in 2007, with an annual output of 265,000 tons. Less than a decade later, in 2016, that number had more than tripled to 850,000 tons. Wild-caught crayfish added another 49,000 tons to the total. But the real boom was yet to come. By 2022, China's crayfish production reached a staggering 2.5 million tons. The entire industry was valued at over 369 billion yuan, or about 53 billion US dollars. That's more than the GDP of some small countries. Crayfish were no longer just a culinary trend. They had become a cornerstone of the rural economy. One standout example is Shui County, located in eastern China's Jiangsu province. Known as the crayfish capital of China, Shui has transformed its economy around these crustaceans. By 2025, the county had established 165,000 acres of eco-friendly crayfish farming zones. Over 210,000 residents, more than the population of Salt Lake City, work in crayfish-related industries. Even the crayfish themselves have evolved. Through selective breeding, local farmers developed a line of crayfish that grow larger and reach maturity faster than the original imports. This faster-growing strain can earn farmers an additional 500 yuan per mu, a Chinese land measurement equal to about 1/6 of an acre. It's a significant economic boost in rural areas, where incomes are often limited. In Hubei province, another crayfish stronghold, the city of Xinjiang proudly boasts a 49-foot-tall crayfish statue, the tallest in the world, officially listed in the Guinness Book of Records. The city has become a tourist destination, often called the Eco-City of Crayfish, with restaurants, educational tours, and scenic farming zones all built around the industry. At one processing plant alone in Xinjiang, 500 workers handle 80 tons of crayfish in just a 10-hour shift. Multiply that by the hundreds of facilities scattered across China, and it becomes clear. This is not just a food item, it's a national enterprise. But perhaps the most fascinating development of all is how crayfish are being integrated directly into agriculture, specifically into rice farming. This method is known as integrated crayfish rice farming, and it's proving to be one of China's most promising sustainable farming innovations. The idea is simple yet ingenious. Farmers plant rice in their paddies as usual, but they also dig circular trenches around the fields. These serve as habitats for crayfish. After the rice is harvested, the leftover straw is left in the field, and the paddies are flooded, creating an ideal nursery for young crayfish. The straw provides warmth and shelter during cooler months and eventually decomposes, becoming food for the crayfish. As omnivorous scavengers, crayfish feed on detritus, decomposing plant material, and small aquatic organisms. Their constant foraging keeps the paddies clean and reduces pests. Meanwhile, crayfish waste acts as a natural fertilizer, releasing organic carbon, nitrogen, and potassium, essential nutrients for rice growth. And there's more. When crayfish die, their bodies decompose and further enrich the soil. This cycle significantly reduces the need for chemical fertilizers and pesticides, resulting in cleaner, healthier rice and less environmental pollution. A study published in the Chinese Journal of Ecological Agriculture monitored integrated crayfish rice systems from 2005 to 2015. The results showed that these systems significantly outperformed traditional monoculture rice fields in terms of soil health, biodiversity, and yield. Before 2014, farmers would rotate between crayfish and rice on the same fields, but the introduction of mixed farming changed everything. By 2015, 93% of local farms in participating regions had adopted this integrated approach. According to a 2018 report by the Ministry of Agriculture, crayfish production in one city doubled in a single year, reaching 70,000 tons in 2017. This method is now widely seen as a way to maximize yields, increase rural incomes, and make use of less fertile soil, all without compromising environmental sustainability. As revolutionary as this farming method is, it's not without its downsides. First, growing rice and crayfish together isn't as easy as it might seem. It requires technical knowledge, careful planning, and precise water management. Crayfish are resilient, but they're also opportunistic feeders. If managed poorly, they can start damaging the rice crop they're meant to support. Then there's the issue of land use. To create permanent crayfish habitats, many farmers dig deep trenches and flood fields year-round. This shift from seasonal to permanent flooding reduces the availability of dry land, especially for winter crops like wheat, barley, and rye. That's a serious concern. While rice remains China's primary grain, with 207.5 million tons produced in 2024, wheat is close behind at 140.1 million tons. Wheat is essential for bread, noodles, dumplings, and other staples. Reducing wheat output could strain China's food security, especially as demand continues to rise. One striking example comes from the Yangtze River Basin, where over 1.6 million acres of rice and crayfish fields used to support winter wheat cultivation. Now, much of that land stays underwater year-round, making it unsuitable for wheat farming. And that's just one region. This growing tension between aquaculture and dry farming raises important questions. Can China strike a balance between maximizing income from crayfish and protecting long-term grain supplies? Can integrated systems evolve to support both summer and winter crops? Despite the challenges, China's crayfish experiment has captured the attention of the world. It's a rare example of an invasive species being transformed into a tool for sustainable farming, poverty alleviation, and even national pride. From obscure foreign invader to economic driver, crayfish have changed the face of rural China. They've turned remote counties into thriving communities, reduced reliance on chemical fertilizers, and offered a viable path for regenerating degraded land.